Good to see you, Tim.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the Been Talking podcast.
Welcome, mate.
You're a guy that helps small businesses. You coach them and navigate them through some difficult and challenging times, and get their mindset right too. That's my sort of sum up of you. But I guess for people that don't know you, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, having sort of been brought up in small business myself, mum and dad both have had small businesses pretty much my whole life. It's something I've always been exposed to, and I suppose that was a point of normality for me. I then went out and had quite a few different fingers in different pies across the time. Went through some, early days, had to work around hospitality, around, working in small businesses myself. Then got out of that and went right to the other end, so working in IT team leading for IBM and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So completely different. And
Yeah.
So I've sort of seen both ends of the spectrum there. Probably didn't consciously realise the difference between the two at the time. It's just a job was a job. You work through.
Yeah, you go there, you're 9 to 5, you get your money, you pay.
Yeah, totally. And as you do in your younger 20s, it's very much about, paycheck. Let's get the next one up and on. And, there wasn't too much thought. There was a bit of travel in there and some things like that. And then look, across the time, I've sort of found myself returning to small business. So it's been an interesting one across that. To come back and be at the point where I'm at now, but had a little time, probably around the last 6 months it's been, where really just had that, okay, it's time to zoom in. What do I really want to do with the next phase of my life? And came across a few resources that really help clear things up and look at it. And now I've now made this step out for the last 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Made a bit of transition.
Yeah.
So training, for example, is something I've always been interested in. So in between there, went and did a Cert 4 in training assessment, worked through that, and at the back of that, launching a business, which I have done now for the last few months, and just really enjoying going through the process of building something from scratch.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're in startup mode essentially yourself as well.
Yeah, so just come out of the ramp up.
Yeah.
Done a few, I suppose, trial programs, running it through with existing customers that I've worked with before in previous roles.
Yep.
So in previous role for me, I was doing business coaching, program development, things around that. So working on that, but it was for a franchise support office. So within that, there's a bit more of a stricter confine of what you can do with them, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's been really great to get the shackles off a little bit and really work through with these businesses on what they need specifically from a total business level.
Right. So what are you specifically targeting? There's a small business out there. What are you going in and improving for them, specifically when it comes to your process? Yeah,
for sure. So generally, look, the things I'm a big believer that a better you, better business.
Okay.
So like in the end, we experience every single thing every single day through the filter of our mind. And when you're getting, I suppose, like a lot of people I feel get trapped in a cell they create for themselves within a small business. It's very hard to know if when you're in the problem, other ways to look at it. A lot of the time it's just a really small click on mindset that changes everything for them. But realistically, it's, to answer your question, it's an exploration piece around, you've got the fundamentals which you can't ignore. So, time, team, money, marketing, sales, you've got to have those in place. But then realistically, it's about, how they see the business, what their vision for it is, where they impose limitations on themselves. So that's a huge piece for me, and that was a real change in my thinking. I know was when you see yourself on a trajectory and you think this is what I'm capable of personally. Well, I mean, that's not necessarily true. That's a storyline that you run in your own head. I had an experience where I suppose that was unlocked for me, and it's a world of possibility, and it's what you then do with it. So
I myself have had some mental blocks, and it's interesting when you say mindset. It's crazy the difference between being negative all day then versus coming out of that and feeling like you can do anything. So I guess, do you have any kind of tips around being in a better state every single day? Because it is hard. I mean,
massively.
Look, we're in a great time at the moment. We're in December, so the sun's out.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy. Christmas is around the corner.
Yeah.
We got the tree in the background. But when winter comes around, that's when it can be really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think one of the most important things for me personally in transformation of mindset is just getting into a healthy mental routine. So for me, it's, you know, probably the last 4 years I've been a strict meditator. I've explored different pieces there, and look, originally that was around a piece of sort of quietening the voices in my head was the intent I got into it for. And
I like that you said meditation. You got the Tim Ferriss look going on.
Well, both of us, obviously.
Yeah, me too. I'm about to go there. For people just listening along and know Tim Ferriss, Jake's got the look.
I'll take that as a high compliment.
Yeah.
No, but definitely going down that track for me. So an unintended benefit of it is just being able to wake up. So someone I subscribe to a lot is Sam Harris, and
Okay.
he's got a fantastic app called Waking Up, which literally runs you through 50 days of a targeted meditation that says, here's how to treat your mind, and here's a thought process to go through in meditation to teach you. And the analogy he uses is, you know, you have that storyline running at any single time and any day. As you get better at this, you'll continually find yourself waking up to, you know, you're watching a movie screen. So it's very easy when you're watching a movie to get totally immersed in it, and that becomes a reality. Well, that's exactly like the storylines within us.
Yeah.
So, you know, at any given time, if you can wake up, you then have control over how you perceive what's going on around you, what you choose to do. So it's one of those hard ones that it's sort of, you have to get to that point before you can see that, but knowing that that's there, that makes a huge difference in the mindset for me.
Yeah. So how would someone control their day if the classic example is if someone cuts you off?
Yep.
You've got a choice, right? You've got a choice that you can get pissed off and angry and yell, and you could even jump out of the car and smash their window if you wanted, right? But that's probably going to have some legal consequences. And then you have the other option of going, look, you know, that person might be pissed off, they might be running late, they might be, you know, and just not letting it affect you. So I don't know if I just answered the question. But yeah, how would someone control their day if they're a business owner and they're feeling stressed out?
Yeah, totally. And look, that's the reality. So it's not something I'm perfect at, and it's something I grapple with daily. A few tools for me that have been really helpful is if I find myself getting into a mindset where I find that I haven't controlled the day like I like, I'll just go about a rigorous process of an hourly timer, and I'll just record what I did for the last hour after it. So, you know, be able to sit down at the end of the day and you've got 8 or 10 segments of what did I actually do, and then, well, I'm sure as you know yourself, but the importance in looking at what is actually effective versus filling a day is such an important thing when you're
busy.
Yeah, totally. And like we're geared to fill time. That's totally how it works. But, you know, within that, so that recording, that rigorous, okay, what did I do for the last hour? You know, on the other side of that, if you want to plan the next hour, it's really helpful for me to get into a mindset of, if I only had an hour to work today, what would I focus on? So that's a really good way to plan your next hour, to literally reduce it down, because like that's a huge problem that everyone has all the time is opportunities everywhere. So, you know, we talked about this previously, but it's one of those ironic things you say, I'd love to have 48 hours in a day, which is a really good sign to me that someone potentially isn't managing their time as best they could be. So it's about those little ways you can really reduce it down into blocks. Even look at, you know, like getting started in that sense is really hard, but what is the next critical action, or what is one step towards this that I can make that positively will do it, and giving yourself a definite endpoint. So obviously you can't get everything finished in one unit of time. It's about being reasonable with yourself and balancing and assessing how you've used that time.
Yeah, and what we're getting into now is peak performance and getting the most out of your 24 hours, 48 hours, month, week, day. We actually had that interesting chat where it was like, I wish we had 48 hours in the day. Reason that was coming out was we wanted to schedule in this podcast.
Yeah.
And it's coming up to Christmas and New Year's, and I'm going away to Tasmania next week, and you could very easily have just gone, oh no, we'll do it next year.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I'll take the foot off the pedal. But what ended up happening was we just kept in touch, and now we're here. And I think that's an awesome thing of priorities. Like, we just looked at scheduling and gone, oh, okay, well, 9:30 Wednesday. You know, I can move some things around and we can do it. So, do you think there was a part of you that enabled you to think like that, in terms of, I'm not going to take the foot off the gas, and this is something that I want? Thank you. This is something, you know, I want to.
No, look, definitely this is something that's important to me, and I mean, to mangle a Tim Ferriss quote, that's something he talks about is your life expands in proportion to your courage. So it's an A.S. Nin saying that he has actually carved into his coffee table. It's around that, but exactly that. So this is something that is challenging for me. This is the first time I've done something like this.
Yeah.
It would be very easy to tell myself in my storyline, you know, it's Christmas time, I've got a million things going on, I'm building this business, this is way more important. But at the same time, I see real value in this. So again, it's about waking up, pulling yourself out of that storyline you're in. I have a weird saying I've sort of had as a bit of a mantra for myself, and it can come off quite negative, but there's never a good time for a funeral. What I mean by that is, you know, it's everyone manages to get a funeral done. There's never a good time for a funeral. You can do it. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. It's how you choose to use them. So again, if you can be present about the things that really matter, and see a way and a path for yourself to those things. All right, yeah, sure. It's not always going to be a straight line. It'd be boring if it was, but if you can keep connected to that end vision you want, and look, this is definitely something that fits into it. This is a massively helpful exercise for me to be able to sit down with you and even articulate some of this thought, have you draw it out of me. So I see a huge benefit in doing things like this, in networking and putting it forward. But it would be so easy to just say, that time of year, write it off. 12 other things I could do instead.
Priority. I was actually having a really funny thought the other day. I was like, what if every person and every business owner acted throughout the year like they do in December and January?
You know, sales,
nothing would get done.
No, totally.
Nothing would get done.
No, I couldn't agree more on that.
I mean, I know it's it's very an Australian thing, because I've spoken to like Americans. They just hustle, Gary V, kind of stuff. But Australians, we just take the foot off the pedal, and I don't know. Have you ever quantified that in terms of if you stop working for 2 weeks, then another 2 weeks, how much you're actually earning? I wonder if people have done that.
Totally, and I think the one that people really don't see about that is, like, I see, you take the process of sales or marketing for me, a lot of people get into it and they say, I do a sales or marketing activity, I want an outcome now. For me, it's sort of like that game that used to be on The Price is Right, where, like, you know, the guy's walking up the hill and you have to keep putting him up the hill and putting up the hill. You don't know when you're going to tip him over the edge. It's literally just that positive pipeline activity keeps pushing up, nurturing, that tips it over the edge. So in terms of quantifiables, it's the kind of thing that hurts you in 2 months potentially. And humans typically aren't good at connecting that short term. So and again, that's the importance of connecting to an overall longer term vision, to actually sticking at it and measuring. But you're totally right. And look, the other thing that comes to mind this time of year is around New Year's. Like, it is the time of change. So, you know, there's major catalysts for people to just go, what am I doing with my life? And, you know, it's major birthdays, it's New Year's every year. But a great way to look at it, and again, it's if you can get into this mindset, but is like treat every day like it's New Year's Day. Okay. So, you know, like a habit starts when a habit starts. It's not January 1st. Classic Tony Robbins piece, but to decide is literally to cut something off. You know, so a diet starts the minute it starts. It's not, I will start it then. Best advice again is always make that one move towards that thing that you know you need to do. And it doesn't have to be absolute.
Actually, you just touched on something there, getting started and the one step to doing it. Like, often, if somebody's like, oh, I want to do this project, I've got this idea, but ideas are worthless without execution.
Yeah.
So, literally figuring out the one step you can do. Is it creating the Instagram account? Is it purchasing the bit of gear that you need because then you've invested? You know, for me it was okay, I've got a mate here that's told me I need to start my podcast and stop talking about it.
Oh.
And I'm going to do it.
Couldn't agree more.
12 months later, here we are.
Oh, and look, even what you were saying before when we were setting up around, you'd love the sound quality to be better.
Yeah.
You'd love the whatever, like the second
tripod,
person
other images over here, maybe a person filming. Yeah.
And that's literally the difference. It's starting and trying and being willing to fall over. There's sorry, a piece that I love, an Instagram piece. So Rob McElhenney, the creator of a show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He literally, so they're now the longest running TV sitcom ever, continually. But he shared a piece of him and another actor just literally having their first conversation pitch, and he said like it was horrible. Like you watch this compared to where they are now, and that was the point he was making. Is like the difference is people who make things, who start, you have to be willing to fail and iterate. So the classic saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Businesses don't succeed because they have a plan, but you can definitely fail because you don't have a plan. It's about that planning element, but then actually taking it out and being willing to fail with it, to fall over. Like I'm sure you've had many times where you go, oh, what have I done?
More,
you get back at it and go, oh, why was my hair like that? I mean, that doesn't happen.
I've had one where, I mean, my shirt, I didn't have a shirt in here, but I've had one where I was wearing a polo shirt and it was up here, and I was like, but look, I put up the clips and nobody mentioned it.
That's totally a thing, and if you can realise for yourself that, like what you see in yourself as a shortcoming and what you notice about your own embarrassment, no one cares that much.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've got the 48-hour news cycle now, but people go through whole, like what should be career-destroying experiences, and they're back. Yeah. They're back. So it's, people just don't care nearly as much about you as they're running their own storyline.
Yeah. Mr. Donald Trump is probably the cornerstone of that.
It's amazing, and I mean, to him, he's not someone that there's aspects of what he does that I think are very impressive.
Yeah. He's the president for a reason.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Like you look at the way. I mean, I don't agree with the way he puts things forwards, but if you look at purely impact and tactic and what he's put out there, like to keep moving forward with that unstoppable energy.
Yeah. Even if it's crazy and stupid.
I'm like, it's a great point though, but you can't isolate just because I don't like the person, therefore the ideas are useless.
Yeah. Well, that's with everything. I think that's a really good point. Just because I don't like the person, I can't listen to them. I've got people that say, I hate Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yep.
But I listened to his advice. I executed on it. I created a TikTok account, and it went from 0 to 15.
Getting some good numbers there.
Yeah, 0 to 1,500 people in 3 weeks.
I was shocked when I saw that piece you put out. Like, yeah.
50 to 40k views on one video and 35k on another one, purely organic.
But again, that's a point of difference. So rather than people just seeing it and go, oh, that's not for me, or that won't work, try it.
So is that something you try and coach into your clients? Is it's like, because I assume, for social media, for example, it's a media channel that is incredibly powerful, and I agree to the fact that it shouldn't be your strategy, it should be a tactic.
Yes.
So, but at the same time, if a business owner in their 50s or 60s is not there, they're not communicating to a large portion of their market. And I assume you've got some clients that, was it a challenge to get them in that space?
Yeah, definitely. And it's getting away from binary thinking. So it's not black or white. So, just because you're on social media, it doesn't mean you have to do a daily post. It doesn't mean you have to have the ability to get in front of video and put yourself out there. But it's one of those things I'd say it can, so if you don't have a website, if you don't have a Google business listing, if you don't have a Facebook account, it's one more way that people can't find you. So something I just bang in over and over again, but no one ever bought a product that they didn't know existed. If you have that piece lacking, so back to the thought on the binary piece, it can be as simple as just having a business listing that connects back to One Central. So it's a way to access you if I get online. It's a point of credibility, it's a point of ongoing, you get people into that mindset and then going, oh right, so I don't have to write a blog, I don't have to do that. I mean, like a really
doing all those counts, but
totally,
path of least resistance.
totally, and look, it can be as simple as looking at the growth of so initially just having an account into content curation and then building that into content creation, which is obviously the goal. And
I love that you said that, because those 2 videos, 50,000 views, 30,000 views, I didn't do anything special. Honestly, I just created content. I got Simon Sinek's video, circled Free Wise. I edited a thing onto it. You've seen the speech?
No, I haven't.
He talks about businesses communicating from their why, and I'll ask you.
Oh, the one, totally.
So rather than communicating, this is what we do, this is how we do it, do you want to buy one? He communicates from this is why we do it. So we believe that we want to change the status quo. We do that by designing products that are beautifully designed and elegant and different. Do you want to buy one? The message is different. And I did a very short sum up on there. So if you're listening, type in Simon Sinek why on YouTube, watch the 5-minute clip, or go to my TikTok. Go to my TikTok, been talking, I've snippeted there. But I curated content, back to what you were saying. And then what happened was my content, because of the curated stuff, boosted as well.
Totally. And look, the biggest side effect there is your brand is then associated with Simon Sinek's brand, which is a powerful brand. I mean, and that's a lot of it is just even talking about what the factors that influence you and come forward. And like obviously that won't work for a retail business, but at the same time there's a lot of actor-like markets that I'm interested in notepads. I also like whatever product over here. What you can bounce off there.
That's it. So that leads me into this question: is what is your business's why? Why does it exist, and why should people care?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So it's always a really good question to get down to the core of. I'd love to be able to answer that in one sentence.
Yeah. That's why we're in a podcast.
Yeah, totally. And look, it's something I've had a crack at a few times, and it gets shorter and shorter. But look, realistically, the why piece of it is, I'd love to say it's about getting people to fall in love with their business again. If I could, so as we were talking earlier, for those that haven't come across my business in its fullest sense, but I want to take it to a place that it's a one-touch total business hub to be able to actually, to have a centralized support offering for independent business and small business. So the benefits of a larger corporate, so you've got a marketing department that works with a sales department that works with it, to be able to actually to take that out to give that benefit there. And the technology that's come forward in the last 5-10 years has really enabled us to do that, but I don't think the way that we do business is necessarily upgraded enough in terms of the way we think about these things, how we take things to market. So that's something I really want to lead forward. So taking the benefits of a lot of small independent businesses, consolidating the offer and really taking that into those small business owners.
You said something there, I love that, a business owner falling back in love with their business. Because a business owner starts a business because, for 2 reasons. One, they ever tell their boss to go shove it with
I've had it with this crap, I can do this better,
That's one of the reasons.
It's a classic.
The second reason is, I am a technician, I love what I'm doing, I'm good at it, I can go and do this myself.
Yep.
So they start out and they love it. 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the track, they realise business is hard. So walk me through, well, we talked a bit about mindset, but walk me through how that happens, how someone falls out in love with their business. What's the financial pressures that come along with that? What's the emotional pressures that come with that? How does that happen? How does someone fall out in love and then they find you as your Cupid, your
business Cupid, I'll take that.
Yeah, the business Cupid.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think like the number one is nearly every small business has a family component. Whether it be husband and wife, father, son, whatever the scenario is, I think that's a really hard thing. So particularly when, you think about the people we work with, effectively a lot of the time we spend more time with those people than we do with our loved ones. It's just a crazy setup that we've built out of the back of the industrial era. But you look at a small business, a lot of the time it always involves family, but it quite often directly involves family. So, the emotional pressure that puts on, if business isn't growing, isn't succeeding, you've got human drive within you to thrive, the hunt and gather piece. If that's not happening, you've got probably, there's a real capacity to have a negative self-view. I'm not thriving, I'm not growing, I'm not in control of my world. You couple that with a situation where, your spouse, your child, whatever is involved, that can really quickly get, it closes your world in around you. I go home and I've got pressure around finance. I don't know how I'm paying a mortgage. I don't know where the next dollar's coming from. I don't know what to try. I don't know where to go with this. I don't know who to talk to. Because you are working in that business with these same people, the same problems come across to them. So it's very hard for those people to get think outside their own box. Classic truism, but you can't solve a problem from within inside it a lot of the time. So one way that straight away just look at, all right, give the people perspective, lift them out of their business. So as I was saying before we started the podcast, but I'm a massive fan of thought experiments. One that I work with quite frequently is if you look at your business, or take any interaction, essentially what it's doing is using a customer journey, but you can apply that to anything. So if you imagine you've got, your business is like an ant farm, right? And you're looking down from the side view or above, and you can do this activity with a whiteboard, but get a whiteboard and so, draw Tim, okay, right inside, Jake, and then you talk about an information flow piece. So what's a practical, what's a normal activity that you do in a day to day? So we take a sales order, okay, so third party customer, circled up, written out. Actually look how the information flows. Actually look at what that requires. So is there any reason I need to go to you to then order the product? Could we systemize that out?
Yeah.
Can we make a better flow there? If you start looking at it across a total business, the amount of times that we just do because we always did. So, so people buy businesses or people create them. Technology is completely different now to what it was 40 years ago. So I come across businesses and this is fine for them, but they still manually invoice, like literally handwritten manual invoice. They still exist out there. There's businesses that will balance their, like the sales retail businesses that manually producing invoices. It works, but you look at the deficiencies within that and the pressure that puts on. So you've got the classic role of, you always see this, but I'm the business owner, I control the process, I am the process essentially. So if an invoice needs to be written, it requires you to sit in a spot, write on a book, issue it, double check it, ask the questions. All right, is that something we can move away from you? That's a point of pressure off you. That's a point of potential conflict off me if we're working in the business, because I don't want to have to come and ask you every time. You're busy doing something valuable. I don't want to have to come and ask you to pull you away from that to do that. So definitely in terms of in process, that's a massive one. In terms of interaction, again, it's just about getting out of that and looking at how you literally do work together. So I'm a huge fan again of systemization and process. A lot of people say it's highly robotic and I'm not that, I don't want to be a robot, I don't want this horrible, we do this, then this, then this. You look at really good businesses though, and what process and repetition builds is the ability to have the mental capacity to then be able to interact with the situation. So I look at, for those listening along, we're across the road from Padre Coffee at the moment, and I think they're a fantastic example of a business that flows well with system and process. And I was listening to the owner actually on another podcast on Andrew Horsfield's.
Oh, great. I'll go over and ask him if he wants to.
Totally, it's a fantastic episode, and I'd recommend anyone has a listen to it. But he talks about the fact that there's 2 or 3 critical positions in their front bench that can't be unattended. So through that system or process, that there's always someone to register to quickly take your order. As a customer, you've always got what I came in for is captured. So okay, cool, that's under control. You've always got to have someone on machine and milk. But within that, because they know there's always a process, they don't do queue jumps, everyone knows that. Suddenly you get time to go, okay, next order's coming up, I can automate that mentally, I can produce that well, and then I've got time to interact with the customer in a personable way. So because there is a system and process that exists, suddenly you're not using, 90% of your mental capacity. And the classic example where I talk about this a lot, but getting people to change that mindset. If you think about the time when you first learned to drive, like just how resource intensive that is, if you compare that to where you were there to where you are now, where quite a lot of times, I mean, nearly every time I drive somewhere that's not new, I'm listening to a podcast or an audio book, but I can fully concentrate on learning while still driving. Or you have that horrible scenario where you wake up at your destination and you go, oh, I just drove for 45 minutes but you drove perfectly because you have a system and a process and you've learned that through. So it's really important, and they're not necessarily the sexiest things in the business, but if you can put those fundamentals in and do well across those multiple fields, and that's where I work. So I look at the space, do an analysis across what's the single worst thing that we can bring up 10% that makes everything awesome. So you could have 6 different parts of your business that you do as a 10, and you could have customer service is a 2. Yeah. If you bring customer service up to 5, you've tripled your business effectively. It's looking at those little things, and again, they're really hard to see from within that problem. So we always do what we've always done.
I love that. I'm obsessed with the micro things, the little details. What the theory is called is it's design thinking. Yep. So it's thinking about every single touch point that your customer has within your business and how can you improve it. And the little changes, the things that people give a crap about are the small things. You go and read any review online that's negative, and it would have been a small little detail. Oh, my food was burnt. Whatever it is, that can easily be fixed with a little tweak.
Oh, massively, and the kind of things that the minute someone says it to you, it's just bing, light switch. So it's just a matter of getting the right people surrounding you that challenge you in the right ways, to think about the same things you've always looked at from a different lens or perspective or angle.
That's where having someone come from an outside point of view and look into it. Like I used to work at it was like a payment system, and different retailers would accept payment, and basically certain businesses would have the sticker "It's we accepted here," but other businesses wouldn't. So you'd walk in and you'd be like, "Oh, is it accepted here? I don't know."
Totally, and that's a point of friction you don't need.
Yeah,
like
reduce friction.
So I used to coach sales in a retail environment, specialty sales, but it's the simplest thing, but it makes the biggest difference. Is no matter what, if someone started a conversation with you around finding out about a product or whatever, it's not a rude question to ask if they would like to buy it. So in this scenario, like it was white goods. Yes. So you physically cannot go and pick a front loader washing machine off the shelf and take it. So what do? So I know if I'm a customer in that scenario, I will push the person selling to me, okay, well, what's the next step? Not everyone will do that. Instantly, you may be isolating 30% of your population by not just saying, here is the next step to purchasing this. If you're interested, that's a very soft way to say it. Or literally, would you like me to grab one for you now? Like that, the difference that makes. But people don't do it. You have to make the ask in that sense. It's not about you. It's about giving them permission to buy it.
Well, I think that's a peak performance checkbox. I'll call that a peak performance checkbox. Why I'll do that is because it's one of those things that as soon as you understand it, your sales will increase, your life will get better. God, even organising things with friends, I use sales tactics.
You can't not.
You can't not.
Yeah.
Give them dates, give them times. Don't just be like, hey, let's catch up.
Well, even so, something I noticed you did, but nearly one of the number one tips I always give people: if you're trying to catch up with someone, don't say generally, would you like to do it Friday? Just make a suggestion. Yeah. So Thursday 2 p.m. Okay, because now I can visualise.
The time is a key thing there.
Make it specific, and it's a time that's available to you. Because there's a psychological process called channel factors, but effectively think of it as if you've got a fresh hill of snow, the first person to go down a toboggan, they'll make a track, and then the second one they might run at a 45-degree angle to that, but then they come into that track of the last one, they'll follow it in. So if you think about that, realistically, if you present something 1, 2, 3, 4, this is the way that it works, people most of the time will go with that. Yeah. So if you can have that in place, okay, I'm not thinking in terms of, well, what are all the times then that I could book in a meeting with Tim? I'm thinking, does Thursday at 2 p.m. work for me? Or is there an alternative that I can suggest it's going to work?
Which you will say.
Yeah, which is, again, it's created a better thought pattern for me as a person being asked, because now I'm saying, can I fit to that? Or, you know what, I'll suggest that instead.
Yeah, and I'm lucky in the fact that when I was 18, a mate of mine, he was working a job in a call centre and he said, we need more people. Do you want to come in and give it a go?
Isn't that an experience?
Yeah, you want to come in and give it a go? I was like, you know what? I need some money, I'm not working. My first call I made, got told to, shove it where the sun don't shine. Second call, was nervous because of that. Third call, made an appointment. So what happened between no and yes? And that question has sort of fascinated me. It's why I went down and did my marketing degree and everything, and then sales. But it's the learning lessons like what we just said, where you give times and dates on things. If you want to get in front of more business owners, if you want to get more clients, develop a pitch that is undeniably great and irresistible, but then just ask for the time.
Yeah, massively. And again, it's about that putting yourself out there. It's a very small risk. A really, like say, sales, you've obviously got the background, so that's potentially a horrible, like a lot of people are probably listening to that and going, that is my absolute worst nightmare, being a cold caller.
Yeah. For me, it's fun.
and like that's such a winning mindset. If you can have that, half the battle's won.
Yeah.
Because it's just, okay, change, try, change. But a really important, again, this is one of these things you can just think about slightly differently, and it changes the whole way you look at it. But if you think about the rejection is not of you, it's of the way either you presented the idea or it's of the process you presented it in. So separating yourself, personal rejection, from the idea of the process or what the product is. Because you know what, like in the end, you might be selling me bananas because I can see a banana, but I might not be hungry for one right now, but that's not necessarily a point of personal offence.
Yeah.
That's fine. Or you know what, you might have not described bananas properly, and I don't want one for that reason.
Yeah.
And then that's something you can tweak, and next time it's fine, but it's not a reason to feel personally rejected.
Yeah, very cool. I want to spin in a different direction, and you may have even heard this question from Tim Ferriss if you listen to his podcast. You've done a lot of things in business. You helped your family business. You've worked a lot, and you've got a lot of experience and a lot of wins and a lot of ups. And I would love to know what your favourite failure has been.
Oh, it's always a good question, isn't it? I love when that one comes up.
Yeah.
So, look, I think generally for me it's been a mindset change to opening up to failure. So to speak more broadly initially, I think there's a lot of problems and traps in perfectionism, which like I've been like hand up massively guilty of, and that's probably the primary thing I've worked on in myself in the last 3 to 5 years. So
Getting it done.
I was always good at, everything came easily to me at school. I was good at sports, I was good at math, science, whatever, like it was fine, things were easy. But then you get into a mindset of, okay, I'm at that level, push others down around it and prove that you're at that level. So like a fantastic book, which I'm sure a lot of people have come across, but like Mindset by Carol Dweck, talking about growth versus fixed mindset. And I can very much see that a lot of attributes in myself, I was sitting in a fixed mindset where so for anyone that hasn't come across that, the idea being that if you've got a fixed mindset, you're in a belief system where your skills, attributes, personal qualities are assigned to you at birth, and they are what they are. If you've got a growth mindset, you genuinely believe that by doing, practicing, learning, trying, failing, you can get better at things. The way that makes you interact with the world is profound. So the difference is, if you can sit in a growth mindset, you are willing to try things, to fail at them, to practice to get better. If you're sitting in a fixed mindset, because, well, you see the behaviour come out of this, but you believe that the skills are the skills you have, so you're more wrapped up in proving that you have those skills rather than developing other ones. For me, it was about moving to that, being willing to fail. So like, in general, look, in terms of biggest failures that have led to success, I think there's been probably in just generally this business. So I know the way that I started this business. If I went back, I wouldn't do it the same at all. But a piece that I've really taken out of it. So for anyone who doesn't know, I quit my job to effectively have nothing. I created a void there. I went and did my intensive course on the Cert 4 in training and assessment, and then just came home and I had, okay, I've sort of got this idea that I might want to try. What's that look like? So in that sense, the thing that I do very differently was straight away, it's more important to be moving towards something than it is to be moving away from it. The failure aspect of it, I probably had just 2 months of churn. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'd go down rabbit holes on YouTube learning about something for a day. But look, out the back of that failure, because I enabled myself to do it, then enabled me to come into this mindset now. So to actually create something out the back of that. So I suppose not technically a failure, but definitely something I do quite differently.
Still, that's the point of it. It's looking at, okay, you've done something that you would do differently. That's
totally.
And then to go the opposite end of that, what has been your favourite win in this business so far? I specifically would love to hear about a client success story. But yeah, you could do both. It could have been a tweak you made that got more customers. But yeah, I think we actually haven't talked about the work. Sorry, I'll just rephrase that question then. What's been your favourite win that you've had for a client?
Yeah, definitely. So to the very first job I did, it's for a business that I worked with before. I built out I suppose it's about a 3-session program, but actually putting it out to them and saying, I will come and run this with you for effectively cost. So they're a business about a 3-hour drive away. Drove there, stayed overnight, facilitated with them for about 6-7 hours, amongst some other things, drive back. It was a hard slog, but it was one that I was so keen to put out there. But just getting in front of them and watching some of the mind shift changes in delivering the content the way that I do, actually seeing them consider the same things I've looked at over and over. And this is quite a successful business, So this is.
Do you mind dropping the name? Or you don't need to.
Yeah, so it's the Office Choice Bairnsdale business.
Okay.
So I previously worked with them
before. They'll get a shout out. Go and what do they do? Business office supplies. So they're pretty much the largest in Eastern Victoria. Right, well, if you're in Bairnsdale and you need office supplies, you know where to go.
Oh, they're gonna love this plug.
Yeah.
But just literally going through with them. So there's 3 quite young owners in that business who have taken over from within. So that's a customer group I love working with. Is someone who's been in the business doing it, like you're saying before, as a technician, like in that classic sort of E-Myth mindset of business, but like classical technician, they've made that step to go up and actually take over the business to buy it from the previous owner, and they've really grown it. So they actually won Dealer of the Year last year. Mm-hmm. So I was working with them at the time when I was with my previous employer through that period, and then I've done a job with them since. But in particular, just seeing the transition in mindset to have one guy in particular, but he said it a few times to say that I could not have seen myself being a business owner, let alone a successful one 2 or 3 years ago. So for him to actually go, that's a self-imposed belief that I had there that is now being eradicated to go above that. And look, I can't take full claim for that, but to sit with someone and see them make that realisation, it's huge, because instantly what that opens up is, I didn't think I could do that and I did that. What else don't I think I can do that I almost certainly can? Yeah. And again, it comes back to that growth mindset piece. If you genuinely believe you can learn and develop the skills, I can't remember who said it, but essentially it's always, well, I don't know how to do that yet. But even just keeping that mental loop open, I don't know how to do it yet. And look, humans are terrible at predicting outcomes. Like we're meaning-making machines and we think we can do it. It's something that you obviously do quite well, but you obviously have good self-talk to be able to go, because there's times you don't want to do it. Obviously, there's a lot of times you don't want to do it, and this is too hard. And it's a really good exercise from cognitive behavioural therapy. But for people who are stuck in this mindset, like there's a party coming up, I don't want to go to it. There's a networking meeting, I'm not going to enjoy that. It's very easy to talk yourself into why you don't want to do something. the exercise that changes it all is just literally get a journal or a book, and every single time have a couple of columns and just write what the thing is, predict how much you're going to enjoy it out of 10, do it, and then note how much you actually did enjoy it or get value out of it. Invariably, there'll always be a gap in that second column that says, you know what, I thought it was going to be about a 4, 7. And yep, sure, some will be worse. There's things you get excited about, but the thing to learn about out of it is you're not always good at predicting how much you're going to enjoy something, what you're going to get out of something, how much fulfillment you're going to get out of something.
Definitely. Cool. I mean, that's a really awesome spot to, I think, leave it on. But 2 more questions that I have is, one, what are you looking, what's coming up next year? What does your 2020 look like? What are the sort of 2-3 things that you really want to focus on and expand for 2020?
Yeah, great question. Question.
So I'll follow up with you. We'll do a follow-up podcast.
Oh, I love it. Hold me to account. Bang.
Yeah.
It's such a great format though, isn't it? Like literally, you put something out there and you can review a year down the track. I love it and even be able to capture your mindset at the time.
The 10th.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, but it's such a valuable thing even to be able to capture your mindset at a time. And look at the thinking patterns you had in it, because obviously you'll be able to watch this back and so a bit of a diversion from what you asked. But one of my absolute favourite tools that I run is I call it a success log. So I have an email thread where I just reply to my email with every single thing I do, try, maybe even fail at, but positive. Because it's really easy to go, particularly when you do knowledge work. So I mean, it's different if you're on the tools every day. I go and build a house, I can see that I've got a completion of a house done within 10 days. I can see progress. It's really hard to keep progress with yourself sometimes because you can only really keep in your mind what's recent. But to be able to go back and go, oh wow, dum, 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 up, sideways, 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 up. What were the things that mattered and what were the things I actually did and tried? So, you know, talking about this, I'm sure for you and me both, we'll be able to watch this back and say, gee, my voice in presenting, my clarity of message, my body, my tonality, whatever, has come a long way forward.
Oh, I know I'm not sitting how I'd want to. I know I'll watch this back and go,
But look, even within that, like, and I can see it in you, like having done a bit of research for this, listening to the first one versus what we've just gone through now, and you know a few of the more recent ones. It's a vastly different product, but you'd never notice it one step at a time.
No.
But they're the important ones. It's that 1% a week, and you're 52% better by the end of the year.
Correct.
Dodgy math, but so to come full arc back to your question, what I'm really looking forward to in the next year, big goals for me. I deliberately want to keep extremely intimate and small to a point that I'm working with people at like a really connected, meaningful level. It's not about scattergun broad for me, so I'm looking at just taking 1 per month. That's adding 1 per month, building the business that way. And look, to me, it's a maximum of 20 I want to go to. So across the next 12 months, you know, it's adding another 12 there, and then genuinely making sure I'm delivering value to them in the way I want to.
Fantastic. And then the last one, look, if someone's heard something on this podcast and they want to reach out to you, where is the best place to find you and your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got my website at upperlimit.club. Outside of that as well, I've got on LinkedIn, Jake Harris as my account code, Jake S. Harris, all spelled how you would expect. Or if you want to just send an email across, jake@upperlimit.club.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Jake, you've been Jake, I've been Tim, and we've been talking.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Tim.
Cheers. Awesome.
Easy as you like.